At the beginning of the story, we see a man named Charles Bronson, known as the most dangerous prisoner in history. He was so violent that he was sent to 120 different prisons. Now Bronson stands on a stage himself, telling the audience about the purpose of his life, his childhood, his youth, and everything he went through. He says that he always wanted to be famous, and he was willing to pay any price for it. Then we see Bronson locked inside a cage, stripped of his clothes, his body covered in wounds. But even then, he refused to give up. Every time a guard entered his cage, he would beat them brutally. Punches and kicks echoed through the prison. Soon, 4 guards came together, restrained Bronson, and beat him badly. But Bronson still didn't stop. He fought back and attacked the guards again. As Bronson narrated his story, he was laughing hysterically, almost like a psychopath, while the audience sat completely stunned. When Bronson was born, he was just an ordinary child, and his upbringing lacked nothing. But as he grew older, his behavior started to change. He began stealing, and when the school kids found out, they decided to teach him a lesson. But the moment they confronted him, calling him a thief, Bronson lost control of his temper and beat the kids mercilessly. Slowly, everyone began to fear him. One day, during class, a teacher scolded him, and Bronson attacked his teacher, beating him up and even throwing a table at him. Everyone was shocked that a kid could do something like this. When some school staff went to complain at Bronson's house, his mother didn't listen to them at all. She told Bronson to go inside and shut the door on their faces. She loved her son just the way he was and didn't want him to change for anyone. Bronson said that no matter how violent he was, he still had certain principles. He never hurt women, and that was one rule he never broke. After some time, Bronson got his first job at a restaurant. He didn't mind the work, everything was fine for a while. But soon, he began stealing money from there too. A girl working with him started to like Bronson. She would often look at him, and eventually, Bronson began liking her too. He would even give her a part of the money he stole. But soon, Bronson got caught, and the company filed a case of theft against him. When the police arrived at his house, Bronson was already prepared. The moment they entered, he attacked the officers, beating them brutally until they couldn't fight back anymore. In the heat of the fight, he became almost like a beast, biting off one officer's ear completely. The other officer was terrified, wondering what kind of man this was. Bronson was sent to prison for a while, but soon after, he was released. After getting out, he married the same girl from the restaurant. Her name was Irene. They even had a child together, but even after becoming a father, Bronson didn't change. He was still as aggressive as ever. He had a gun, which he had sawed off to make it smaller so that he could carry it without anyone noticing. Bronson needed money, but he didn't want to work under anyone, and whatever he did had to be something he enjoyed. He was distant from his family, and lived mostly on his own. One day, Bronson took his small gun and robbed a post office, but there wasn't much money there. However, this act brought him back into the police's radar, and soon, he was arrested again. This time, the case dragged on for a long time, and Bronson was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Hearing the sentence, Bronson was upset but didn't show it. His mother was still there and said, "Son, don't worry. I'll fight your case till my last breath. I'll get you out in 4 years." When Bronson was taken to prison, for a brief moment he felt, "Maybe I've done something wrong, that's why I've been thrown into this dark place." But as time passed, he started to think, "This is my life now, and I'm starting to like it." He decided, "This is what I'll make my career in. I want to be famous for being bad." Now Bronson roamed around the prison all day. A year passed like this, and he started getting bored of his routine. He wanted something exciting, something that would give him a kick. So one day, during work hours, he simply sat down like a king, refusing to work. When the manager asked him why, Bronson abused him, saying, "I'm not working. What will you do?" The manager called the guards, and when they questioned him, Bronson attacked them all, beating and dragging them mercilessly. Somehow, the guards managed to take him away. But after this incident, Bronson felt alive again. He thought, Yes, this is the way life should be lived. From then on, he started beating people in prison regularly, without reason, just for thrill. Soon, the whole of England came to know about him. Everyone said that Charles Bronson was the most dangerous prisoner in England's history. Disturbed by Bronson's constant daily beatings, the prison authorities filed a transfer request, basically asking another prison to take him because we can't handle him here. When Bronson was being moved from one prison to another, all the inmates started shouting his name as if he were a movie star. Bronson was thrilled to hear that. It was exactly what he wanted. He thought, now I'm becoming famous in my line of work. And so it went on. Bronson was shuffled from one prison to another, from the second to the third, back and forth. One day, in one of the prisons, Bronson was given the job of serving tea to the inmates. He was doing his duty when a man named Brian walked by. Bronson was watching, waiting for Brian to misbehave so he'd have an excuse to beat him, but instead Brian walked past praising Bronson. For a couple of moments Bronson was quiet. It had been a long time since anyone had said something nice to him. By now Bronson had fallen in love with prison. He felt prison was perfect for him. The only thing he didn't like was constantly being shifted from one institution to another. But no, this didn't make him reform. His behavior spiraled so far out of control that they put him into a psychiatric hospital, saying his mind was broken. Everyone there had disturbed mental balance. Even in that place, the day he arrived, Bronson beat the guards. After that they moved him to a separate ward. One man alone could never handle Bronson. It took 3 or 4 men at least to take him anywhere. Still, he was so violent that he even ruined their health. In the new cell, Bronson lay about all day like a madman. The mental hospital staff, fed up with his behavior, forcibly gave him drugs so that he wouldn't have strength left in his body. He could hardly move. The doctors would come once a day to check on him. He still didn't speak properly to them. At the first chance he swore at them. "Get lost, you doctors, I'll slap you. My mouth won't open, but I'll still." They kept dosing him every day. But one day, when there was a party and people were dancing, Bronson stood up and tried to join. Walking was hard for him and it took great effort, but a guard stopped him and quietly told him to sit down. Bronson began to cry out loudly. "What are you giving me? I can't move like this. I can't hit anyone. Stop this medicine." He didn't want anyone to stop him from doing what he wanted. If someone did, he would break their face. So Bronson decided he had to get out of that hospital, back to prison at any cost. He began to wonder what he would have to do to escape the hospital. He thought, "I'll stab some madman." Acting on that, the next day Bronson tried to kill a man. The man survived, and Bronson was charged with attempted murder and sent back to prison. This time they put him in solitary confinement, a dark cell, alone, for 26 years. Speaking to the audience in the present, Bronson said that what happened to him was very wrong. He had tried to spill blood, he had shed some blood, and yet no trial followed. They just punished him outright. "Is that any way to treat a man?" he asked. By now Bronson's stories had become famous across the country, and when he was punished unfairly the city erupted in protests that caused the government great trouble. After that, Bronson proudly declared, "I am now the country's most expensive prisoner." Following the protests, Bronson was declared mentally ill, and the judge said his mind was unsound. Release him. The judge argued that keeping him in prison would only cause more harm. Bronson was excited to be released because he hadn't been in the outside world for a long time. When he left, all his belongings were returned, his watch, a leather wallet, and a comb, the comb given to mock him because he was bald. His parents came to pick him up. They had moved to a new city and a new home. Nothing from his childhood or past life remained there. Bronson said he'd rather stay in his old town, and so went to live with his uncle Jack, who lived in the same city. Jack ran a brothel, and because Bronson was famous, all the prostitutes there knew of him and tried to come to him, but Bronson rebuffed them all. Then Brian appeared, the same Brian Bronson had met in prison. Bronson asked him, "Do you have any work? I don't want to sit around doing nothing all day." Brian replied, "Yes, I'll get you something. Tell me what you like most. Bronson answered. I like beating people the most. Brian said. Perfect. I have work for exactly that. It turned out Brian organized illegal underground fights. But he told Bronson he would have to change his name for the fights. Up until then, Bronson hadn't been called Bronson. His real name was Charles Peterson. Brian said. Bald or not, you look like a hero, like that American actor. Call yourself Bronson. Bronson liked the name and agreed. From today on, everyone will call me Bronson, and whoever doesn't, I'll make them regret it. After that, Bronson went to a club where, for the first time in a long while, he saw a girl like that. The girl's name was Allison. Soon, the two of them grew close and started living together. At the same time, Bronson began fighting regularly in those underground matches. Winning wasn't too difficult for him. He actually enjoyed it. Most of his opponents were scared of him anyway. But despite all the fights, Bronson was still short on money. So he told Brian, set me up for something more dangerous, but I want more money. Soon, Bronson started fighting two people at once. Even that didn't give him much trouble. In fact, he enjoyed it more and easily defeated both men. But Bronson still demanded, I want an even more dangerous challenge. After that, he began fighting wild dogs. The audience loved these fights. But since Bronson kept winning every single time, he still didn't earn much money. One day, Bronson confessed his love to Allison. But Allison told him she already had a boyfriend and that she loved him. She said, I like guys who spend money on me. What do you give me? Nothing. You're broke. Bronson finally realized he needed to do something about money, especially since Christmas was coming, and he had to buy her a gift. So, to get a present for Allison, Bronson went to a diamond shop. He threatened the female worker, saying, Call the police after 15 minutes, okay? By then, the shop's guards arrived, and Bronson beat them mercilessly, really thrashed them, and ran off with the diamond ring. He soon reached Allison's place with the ring. But Allison said again, I told you, I already have a boyfriend. I love him. Bronson handed her the diamond ring anyway, and Allison said, I'll take the ring, but I still love my boyfriend. You're never going to make anything of your life. You'll just end up back in jail after your fights. Bronson's heart was shattered, but out of principle, he didn't say anything to her. He simply wished her well and quietly walked away. As soon as he stepped outside, the police arrested him and took him back to prison. Bronson had been free for only 69 days. The governor asked him, So, what did you do during those 69 days? Bronson replied, The same thing I love doing, fighting with everyone. I enjoy causing trouble. Hearing that, the governor sent him back to prison again. And once again, Bronson started his old habits. One day, when a librarian came into his cell to place some books, Bronson locked the door and called the guards, saying, If you want to save your friend, come here fast, or I'll kill him for no reason. Before the guards arrived, Bronson stripped naked and told the librarian to rub oil all over his body, so that when the guards tried to grab him, their hands would slip. The poor librarian, terrified, did as he was told. When the guards entered, Bronson attacked them savagely. There were many guards, but none could hold him down. Eventually, they managed to capture him and beat him badly. Even then, Bronson kept shouting abuses at them. Finally, they gagged his mouth and strapped his body tightly so he couldn't move. Then the prison governor came and warned him. If you keep this up, you'll end up dead. One prison after another, you never change your ways. But Bronson didn't care at all. The prison officials then decided to distract him with something else, art. They sent him to a drawing class, where an art teacher named Mr. Daniel praised Bronson's work. He said, With a few improvements, you could make some really great paintings. You're an artist, man. Where have you been hiding? Mr. Daniel also told him, If you refine your art a bit, I'll send your paintings to exhibitions outside. Gradually, Bronson improved a lot and started showing his sketches to the governor, who was also very impressed. He told Bronson, A new life is about to begin for you. Mr. Daniels sent Bronson's artwork outside. But as time passed, Bronson began to suspect that Daniel was selling his paintings and taking advantage of his talent. Then one day, Bronson caught Daniel alone in the art room and beat him brutally. He locked the art room door and painted his entire body black. Guards surrounded the area, shouting for him to open the door, terrified for Daniel's safety. They had no idea what the man might be doing inside. The guards asked what he wanted, so they played classical music for him. As the music played, Bronson began painting on Daniel's body in his own style. When the painting was done, Bronson opened the door and said, "This is my masterpiece." Then he attacked all the guards again. The guards, showing no mercy, beat him mercilessly in return. Time passed, and it was revealed that Bronson had now been in prison for 34 years, out of which 30 years were spent in solitary confinement. No final decision had yet been made about his release. Bronson was locked in a small cage-like cell where he couldn't even sit or lie down properly. Eventually, they even sealed the outer door so that no fresh air could reach his cell. This is the true story of a prisoner named Michael Peterson, known to the world as Charles Bronson. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.